When you left N.W.A, you had this like very public rift with your former, like this crew from N.W.A, like blood feud. Like there was real anger and rage going both ways.
Yeah, I was mad because I had left the group and I felt like it was a business thing. We all grown men and we could handle business, but they made it personal.
I said, listen, man, all of this going back and forth, man, either Jerry goes or I go. And he looked me in my face and said, I can't get rid of Jerry.
So I felt like he wasn't savvy enough to pull this without Jerry Heller's, coaxing and showing him how to make it happen the way Jerry wanted it to happen. So I was just mad at that dude because he wouldn't give me my contract. I just wanted, let me see it. Let me take it to my people.
Jerry Heller's family says he would have wanted the surviving members of N.W.A at his funeral, but they probably should not expect an appearance by Ice Cube. The rapper/actor told Detroit's 107.5 over the weekend that he had no emotions regarding the passing of Heller, who managed N.W.A for 4 years.
So Ice Cube seems to be throwing shade at Dr. Dre once again, and it sounds like Ice still feels Dre played a role in the end of N.W.A. These rumors about Dre's part in the breakup of N.W.A have been swirling since the 90s. Now, we all know Ice Cube was one of the first to split, and he didn't go quietly. He left because he wasn't getting his fair cut from the profits, which he blamed on the group's manager, Jerry Heller. But Cube has also hinted that Dre knew about the shady money deals and still stuck with Heller, choosing loyalty to the group's management over his fellow members. And that choice alone made Cube feel like Dre wasn't really riding for him or the group. Then, after Cube left, we saw Dre break away too, teaming up with Suge Knight to start Death Row Records. And this was no small move. Dre's decision to walk away and start something with Suge was like throwing gasoline on the fire, because Death Row ended up becoming one of the biggest rivals to N.W.A.'s legacy. And with Dre producing and creating some of the biggest hits for Death Row, including Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style and his own The Chronic, it was like he was out to overshadow what he'd built with N.W.A in the first place. And here's where things get even deeper. Cube recently suggested that Dre's decisions weren't just about business, but a part of something bigger that ultimately killed the group. Now, whether that means he thinks Dre was manipulated or was in on the whole setup, Cube hasn't spelled it out completely, but he's made it clear that there's definitely something about Dre's moves that he just can't forgive. So what exactly did Ice Cube say about Dre's role in the N.W.A breakup? Could Dre have made different choices, or was the breakup inevitable from the start? Let's get into it.
Anyway, he had left and basically he was like, you can go out and be a flop like Arabian Prince. That was his exact quotes, really? And I was like, damn, that ain't gonna happen, bruh.
The on-again, off-again feud between Ice Cube and Dre cut deep into the roots of N.W.A, and apparently it was a big reason why the group broke up in the first place. Now, a lot of people know N.W.A for being groundbreaking, pushing boundaries, and giving a raw voice to the streets. But behind all that success was serious tension, and it sounds like Ice Cube still believes that Dre's decisions played a huge role in bringing it all crashing down. First off, Cube's main reason for initially leaving N.W.A was all about the money. Back in the late 80s, Cube had already started to feel like he was getting played, especially by their manager, Jerry Heller.
He had told me that he had fired Jerry Heller. The finances wasn't right. Jerry was misleading him too.
See, Cube was writing most of the lyrics, contributing to the group's hardcore image and message, and basically carrying a huge part of their creative load. But when it came time to get paid, he noticed he wasn't seeing nearly as much as he expected. Now, what does this have to do with Dre? Well, according to Cube, Dre, who was responsible for producing N.W.A sound, had to have known what was going on. Dre, and the others were staying loyal to Heller, even though Ice Cube was pointing out that Heller was taking more than his fair cut and leaving the group with scraps. In Cube's eyes, Dre had a choice: stick with the group's so-called loyalty to Heller or stand up for what was right. But Dre didn't believe Cube at first, and he sided with Heller. And that's when Cube decided he was out. So after Cube left, N.W.A was already starting to look shaky. But the final hit came when Dre decided to leave too. Dre linked up with Suge Knight, and the two of them co-founded Death Row Records. Now, here's where things get messy. By aligning with Suge and building Death Row, Dre was basically setting up a direct competitor to everything he'd done with N.W.A. Death Row was hardcore, street-focused, and had the potential to overshadow N.W.A.'s impact.
This is a new thing, right?
Yeah.
See, if somebody gonna do something about it, see, technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay.
Way to lighten the mood. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Suge's terror alert level just went from elevated to high.
And Dre's decision to team up with Suge wasn't just about business moves either. Death Row ended up taking over the West Coast rap scene, bringing in artists like Snoop Dogg and later Tupac. With Dre's production genius and Suge's, let's say, persuasive tactics, Death Row was a force. And for Ice Cube, this felt like Dre was deliberately trying to outshine and replace what they'd built with N.W.A. Now let's be real, Dre's success with Death Row was massive, and his work on The Chronic and Doggy Style showed just how much he was capable of. But this success, instead of bringing Dre back together with his N.W.A. brothers, only widened the gap. Cube, who had gone solo and was working hard to make his own mark, saw Dre's success as a betrayal. He felt like Dre wasn't just building his own empire, but was actively erasing N.W.A.'s legacy. Cube even hinted in recent years that Dre's split from N.W.A. was part of a larger plan to distance himself from the group. Cube suggested that Dre was influenced by Suge Knight and others around him, people who saw N.W.A. as baggage rather than the groundbreaking force it was. And to Cube, it seemed like Dre was willing to sacrifice N.W.A. to elevate himself. And even after they went their separate ways, Cube and Dre's feud continued to bubble up in their music. Cube famously took shots at Dre and the rest of N.W.A. in his track No Vaseline, a brutal diss that didn't hold back on calling out what he saw as Dre's betrayal and hypocrisy. And Cube didn't stop there. He called out Eazy-E, Heller, and the rest of the group, accusing them of being manipulated by money and not being loyal to each other.
You know, me and N.W.A. got into it, and, you know, I had to let him know.
As for Dre, he fired back indirectly through his work at Death Row, and the tension between them continued to be a part of the larger East Coast-West Coast rivalry. And then when Dre left Death Row in the mid-90s, some thought this might be a turning point for him and Cube to make amends. But Cube felt that Dre's exit from Death Row only proved his point about Dre being inconsistent with his loyalty. For Cube, it seemed like Dre was always looking out for himself first, jumping ship whenever he saw a better opportunity. But there's another side to this story, because after Dre left the group, he actually accused Eazy-E of conspiring with Jerry Heller to cheat them out of their money. But then it turned out that Jerry Heller was stealing from Eazy-E too, and allegedly pitting the bandmates against each other. See, right before he passed in '95, Eazy cut ties with Heller and opened up to some close friends, saying that Heller had been pulling some shady moves with the money. Ruthless rapper BG Knockout told Hip Hop DX that Eazy had records from where money was missing from the label, millions of dollars that he said Jerry was stealing from him. And then another rapper signed to Ruthless, Toker, claimed that Eazy always blamed Jerry Heller for Cube and Dre falling out and leaving the group. But it sounds like Cube thinks Dre had the power to keep them all together if he had just taken a stand against Heller earlier and had been upfront about the money issues. But Dre's silence was as good as betrayal, and a sign that Dre was willing to look the other way to protect his own interests. And let's not forget that Cube has hinted that Dre knew more about Heller's business practices than he ever admitted. Cube's theory is that Dre and the rest of the group, except him, were okay with the way Heller ran things because they were still getting some form of compensation. Maybe not what they deserved, but enough to stay comfortable. So Cube's issue wasn't just with Heller, it was with his own bandmates who didn't speak up. Now fast forward to today, and Ice Cube and Dr. Dre are both legends in their own right. But their fallout over N.W.A. is still a topic of conversation because it represents a deeper issue in hip-hop and the music industry as a whole. And it sounds like to this day, Cube hasn't completely forgiven Dr. Dre for that. Even though they've been seen together in recent years and have shown mutual respect in public, Cube has made it clear that he hasn't forgotten how things went down. And there were some mixed messages coming from both sides. When Cube and Dre posed next to each other on the cover of Rolling Stone in 2015 for the release of Straight Outta Compton, Dre refused to confirm or deny the reconciliation rumors. And the only thing he told Rolling Stone at the time was, "I have social anxiety. I don't like being in the spotlight, so I made an effing weird career choice." Now, as for fans, it looks like most of them put the blame on Jerry Heller for all this drama. One fan said, "Ice Cube saw straight through Heller. He was the smart one to get away. Dr. Dre caught on later. Plain and simple. But much respect to Eazy-E for helping to bring his music to the forefront. Without Eazy's push, we wouldn't know about N.W.A." And another person added, "Yet when Cube tried to warn them about Jerry, they called the man a traitor. So shout out to Cube for spotting a snake in the garden." But what's your take on all this? Does Ice Cube have a point blaming Dre for not seeing through Jerry Heller's scheme earlier? Who's really responsible for the breakup of N.W.A? Leave your opinions and theories in the comments section below. And make sure you stick around for this next video.